and welcome to SheConnects. I'm Anita Cheng and this is
Solon Hu.
Solon Hu. Solon Hu, where are you from?
I'm from, I live at Rockdale,
Yeah.
around that area. Work in the city, so I'm originally from Hong Kong, so it covers all bases.
Wow, that's halfway around the world.
Oh, not that hard. It was pretty close, 9 hours, I think.
9
Roughly 9 hours
hours.
to get there.
9
Yeah.
hours. Well, thank you driving all this way. Thank you for driving all this way to Fairfield today to be with us at SheConnects, our live workshop and podcast, where we talk to individuals who also share the same values as trust, empowerment and collaboration.
Wow, thank you for inviting me to...
Our live podcast for this session.
Yeah. Thanks for inviting me to the live podcast.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of questions I want the viewers to, get to know you a little bit and a little bit about your story on how you got into where you are today.
So ever since I started law, there's always that want to start my own.
Yeah.
But initially I was always thinking I don't know enough. I gotta keep learning, there's just so much to learn.
That's true.
And the more I learn, the more I realized I don't know. So it got even scarier. So it just progressively got scarier and scarier to start your own.
So one weird cycle of, hey, I need to learn more. Hey, I don't think I'm good enough. Hey, there's more to this, but hey, I still need to keep learning until one day that cycle ended.
Yes, until one day. So what actually happened was,
Yeah.
my grandfather passed away.
Yeah.
And on the last day of work.
Mm.
And then I was like, that just hit me. I was just like, I gotta start my own.
I just can't.
Yeah, just gotta start my own, just gonna give it a go, and whatever happens, happens.
Beautiful.
Mm.
Well, it's very touching that something happened to make you realize this, and it's often that we find that it's either family or someone you love or something traumatic has happened until you realize there's actually an inner spark.
Yeah, to just give you that bit of extra push.
Yeah.
To just go and do it.
Just go and do it. Life is way too short. And I guess this is where we align together, where I guess my story is very similar, where, you can keep watching, you can keep learning, you can keep ticking off educational boxes. It's until you put yourself in that zone, the creator zone we call it, that we want to keep adding value to you and the people around you. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'll say so, yeah. Just something just has to happen for it.
Something just has to happen.
Yeah, but you just how to call it a creator zone?
Creator zone. That's from my own definition of what an entrepreneur is. You shift your mindset from just being in everyday PG salary, doing routine, doing what needs to be done in the week, and expecting what you've always expected. When we jump into that zone from, I guess, an everyday employee to a small business, or let's say a director, for example, right? Someone who wants to be their own boss. And we're all for that. We call that the creator zone, where you are doing things your own way. And we're also trying to find value or synergies among it. And this is why my branding is Synergy Money, right? I find little ways to add value, not just only for results or outcomes, it's to find little value back into a personal space. Which comes back down to your story, my story, and why we started in the first place, correct?
Yeah, no, it's funny how you call it the creator zone, because now that you put it that way, it kind of it clicks a little bit. Before, it's always, for me, it was just get the legal work done.
Yeah.
Get it done. There's almost a kind of step way to get it done.
Correct.
There's a preferred way, there's an unpreferred way, there's all these set pathways. But
best practice, they call it in the business world.
Not that it's in any way wrong, but now coming out of that and doing things your way, you can kind of see different clients and different needs, and you can't just force someone.
There's no one
way.
bucket solution, they call it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where the creative side comes in. What does this person need? And then what can you do to meet that need?
Yeah. And I guess that's very beautiful. And you can now see the creative side within you, right? Whether it's a business thing, whether it's a partnership, whether it's the way you want to shift your focus to clients.
Yeah.
Right? It could be some clients are, let's do a Zoom call, let's get it over and done with. Some you want to meet in person, or some let's talk it over a dinner. A more trusting environment, but the end result is let's get the work done.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we all both feel the same way, because how we deal with clients in corporate is always what has been done, and now it's our turn to change the game.
Yeah, one bit at a time, right?
One bit at a time, right? And we're always students of our own lives, students to people who are around us, and the wisdom that's shared among us as well.
I did hear something about, someone did say, if you stop learning, that's when you're dead.
Oh.
So hence,
student
for life, right? Student for life.
Student for life, but that was, whoa, I didn't expect that. Whoa. Yeah, I definitely agree. The moment you stop learning is when you're not progressing and you're in a fixated mindset, which often might lead to death.
Yeah.
Brutally honest, right? But that's the consequences of not being able to change and not being able to adapt to new environments. And you just you're in your own little bubble.
Yes.
They call it, right? But that's great. Tell me, what sparks your passion in law?
Ooh. I mean, this is going to be a bit anticlimactic, but like how I got there is a bit anticlimactic. So I started off as a high school teacher. Nothing wrong with high school teaching. It's very rewarding. But when I was teaching,
I believe you.
I was just out of uni.
Yep.
I was like, I felt like a child teaching another child. I was like, what do I know about life? What do I know? Aside from, and I was still learning the syllabus. Like, oh, let's learn what's in the syllabus so I can teach the kids. It's like, what do I know that I can teach the kids? Like, not much.
Yeah,
so then I decided, all right, I need to go out and do something else. Something different. Something, just a bit more.
Yeah.
And I went to UNSW.
Yeah.
I grabbed a job guide and I flipped through every single page, looking at it, and I was like, and the only thing that kind of sparked my interest was a law.
Okay.
And I just went like full on, just signed up, did it, just went with it.
Right. Wow, that's a weird path, but you got there, right? Like, us being Asian, and I'm Cantonese by background as well. We've also had an expectation: study hard, earn lots of money, do a profession that's stable, right? We've always got that within us, and coming from my own story is, you got to be an accountant, or you got to be a doctor, you got to be lawyer was not part of my description. My parents weren't as educated, so they didn't aspire me to be something that they're not. But coming back to stability, doing what has been done before. But I'm quite inspired by your story, coming from a teacher as your first job.
Yeah, so it's still great, and I still think
you still are a teacher, to be honest.
Yeah, I think a lot of the skills that I learned from being a teacher I'm still applying that today.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is why I feel when speaking to you, and I've known Solon for about 2-3 years now. He's very soft-spoken, he's very calm, and he doesn't let you down in a way where a shocking matter or a shocking traumatic event has happened that he can't handle. This is the sort of conversation and the vibe and the energy I get when speaking to you, even as a friend.
Oh, that's good. I like that. I like that description.
Thank you. And I don't often compliment people, but when there's beauty to be heard and there's stories to be shared, I love that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So in client services, right, I know that property law is your thing. You also take on other civil matters that come your way as well, right? What are some weird questions clients might come and ask you?
Oh, weird questions. You like that? You like the weird stuff, eh?
I'm all for it.
Look, I have to say, some of the weirdest stuff are like, should I even say on camera?
Well...
Let's just say
we're here for the tea.
Sometimes people ask you things which are clearly not right.
Right.
Okay, something that's clearly not allowed.
Yep.
And you just kind of have to. Sometimes you either have to say it straight to their face.
Yep.
Like, no, you can't do that.
Yep.
Or you have to be a little bit more tactful and show them why you can't really do that, so then they realize it themselves.
Right.
Yeah, for example, some people might want to be paid under the table, through property transaction. Instead of putting the price of $1 million, can I just put 800 and they pay me 200K on the side?
And that's a very common matter that comes up in any transaction, right? Can I pay in cash is the word.
Yes.
Yeah, and how do you educate, I guess, the benefits of that, for example?
Well, so I guess depending on which side I'm on, right? right? If I'm on the seller end, I have to tell them like there's also like the taxation
consequences.
That's right. And I point them to go speak to an accountant. If you were to do that, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Right. So they find the answer themselves.
Beautiful.
And then if I'm acting for the purchaser and they're suggesting some sort of arrangement like that, I just gotta tell it up front, like, if you're gonna do that, are you defrauding someone? Are you defrauding the bank? Because you're saying you're buying something for X amount and you want it for X amount, but you want to do all this kind of stuff. Like, there's just all sorts of little things like that.
Yeah, and I guess education is key, and seeking the right help from the right professions will give the client the best answer.
That's it.
Right. I guess from my world, it's very similar. Like, for example, someone will do a favourable discount for a certain benefit. From what your eyes and my eyes, you're driving the market down for what reason, right? For what personal benefit? You're trying to drive the locations market down, the recent sales of that property down, and there's also risk, which people don't acquire, as in they don't realise there's actually risk in cash transactions where, an arrangement's being made, but you're not a bank. People can run away. These are like you said, weird and random requests that we have to deal with on an everyday basis. Not that saying that there's a lot out there, but when that comes to play, we know how to handle it.
Yeah. Oh, speaking about weird, I just thought of one. It's not really weird, but I find it a little bit, not strange either, but it's a bit peculiar.
Yeah.
I have some clients who refuse to sign a contract on certain days.
Wow.
Or they have to settle on a particular date.
Oh, and is that driven from an Asian background?
Yep, some of them are Asian. Some other ones are like, I can't sign the contract because Mars retrograde or something. Something like
spiritual.
That. Yeah. I'm like, no problem. We'll sign whenever you're ready.
Wow.
But then it gets me going like, what is Mars retrograde? What is this?
Forever learning, right? Forever learning. Well, that's actually really crazy. I guess I'm a big spiritual fan, but not to that extent. I will sign when it's ready, but when it comes down to auspicious dates, the trainers will call it, it is very important, and we need to navigate that with the right profession who understand that as well. That's wonderful. That's really good to share, and it makes me feel less weird.
I've seen enough. I'm just like, yep, no problem. And now sometimes I'm like, acting for sellers, and asking them, is there a date you want to settle? Like, is there any of these special requests? Yeah. So I kind of sometimes I incorporate it into that as well.
Oh, that's great. Well, then that means you're open to everyone, that's for sure.
Pretty much.
Yeah, so I guess I've been hearing that you can act on a purchaser side or a seller side. What is your favourite side to be on?
I think it's the purchaser side. I enjoy being on the purchaser's side the most.
Right, so that's the buyer side, correct? Yeah, so for example, my clients are first-time purchasers, like first home owners, correct? They can directly reach out to you, and that's one of your most favourite requests.
Yeah, because I find when you're acting for buyers, and especially first home buyers, they're always wanting to know what's happening, what's going on, or like, what does this mean? Like, they're more receptive of your advice.
That's right.
Someone who's already bought like 10 properties, they're like, don't tell me this, I've heard it 10 times. It's a different
dynamic.
Different dynamics. So with her first home buyer, it's just nice to kind of show them from start to finish what to expect, what to do.
That you are their advisor at the end of the day. You are their agent at the end of the day for these transactions. I would say, coming from my world, where, first home owners, first time investors, what are some tips that you can share with us today?
I guess being a lawyer, my first tip is always read and understand what you're signing before you sign it. That's probably the main takeaway I would give anybody.
Yeah.
Whether they've, bought properties before or not.
Yeah.
There's just so many times when someone comes to me and I ask them, have you signed a contract? They're like, no, didn't sign a contract. But I signed something, but it wasn't a contract. I was like, what? Okay,
Wait,
all
what?
right, okay. They're like,
Yeah.
And then next second, you know, I get an exchange contract come in. I was like, like you signed a contract. They're like, oh, I didn't realize.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I guess in the moment, right, people will get caught up and they will sign anything that's being handed to them. But your advice is make sure you read and you know what you're signing before you sign your life away.
That's it.
I would say property transactions in my world are expensive. Legal matters are expensive.
Yes.
Your solicitor fees are a small amount compared to the whole transaction. But the advice and the value you give before the purchaser or the seller is signing is invaluable.
Yeah, and just to give a bit of example, like say a conveyancing fee, you know, say it all up roughly about $3,000. Just as an example.
Just as an example.
If you don't read it properly and if something goes wrong, to fix up any mess afterward can cost up to, or even more than $12,000.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's like 3 or 4 times as much as what you expected to pay in the first place.
Exactly. So do it right, so you don't have to pay more later.
Right. Yeah. And I've had like weird and wonderful transactions come through my way where the purchaser, the name of the contract's wrong. You know, you're missing a street name, you're missing a street number, or your lot number's incorrect on the contract of sale.
Well, speaking about incorrect, got a contract recently.
Yeah.
It's clearly selling a unit.
Yeah.
Clearly, right? Okay. But the front page, they've marked a house.
What?
Exactly.
It's a tick box item. How can you get it wrong?
Yeah, they tick house when they're selling an apartment.
Yeah.
I was telling my client who's the buyer, I was like, you got a great deal. You know you're paying for an apartment, but you're getting a house.
Damn, where do I find one of those transactions?
So yeah, get it done right.
Get it on the first time. Yeah, and that's very crucial as well. The banks will reject it and will get you to fix it up, and no matter how many times you need to fix it up, the fee keeps jumping. If you have a nice lawyer, you might get away with it, but if you don't and the fees keep increasing, your whole cost of purchase for that property can get over expensive and over budget, which is not exactly good.
That's right.
Yeah. I guess what is another tip that you would provide to sellers?
For sellers, know your property. That's really the main one.
Right.
As a seller, I think one of the main things is you've got to know about your property.
Yeah.
Because one of the main things about sellers is they have a disclosure requirement.
Yeah.
There are certain things you need to tell the buyer before in order for them to, I guess you could say, not be able to exit the contract at any time. So some of the disclosure requirements are, say, if you've done any improvements on the property, like if you built an extension, or you built like an awning or a pergola, a balcony, or made some structural changes, certain things need to be disclosed.
Yeah.
So if you know your property, then you know what to disclose, but not need to be disclosed. Apartment is very similar. If you did any major renovation, if there's any special levies coming, certain things need to be disclosed. If it's not disclosed, the buyer can potentially pull out the day before settlement when they discover, hey, there's some issues here.
Right, and that's crazy. Like we don't want that, and I've heard stories that people do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like my clients have been very lucky that sellers don't do that, but when I've heard, it's train wreck.
Wow. So yeah, that's why for us we've got to go through like a checklist almost. We've got to ask them, did you do this? Did you do that? They didn't? Great. Is this coming up? Don't know. Okay, let's find out.
I guess another question I would have for you, coming from a first home buyer or a first time investor, as soon as we get the contract, how quick is the turnaround time to review? Should we expect a day? Should we expect a week? Like, what is generally the expectation, the time to review a contract before we even walk in for, I guess, an inspection or an auction coming up?
Yeah, well, good thing you brought this up, because this kind of ties in with delivering, I guess you can say, custom services, depending on what sort of client you're servicing.
Yep.
Whenever someone comes to me with a contract they need it to be reviewed, I give them 3 options. Go and get this. one is a high level review, which is just main points, very, very main points. This is probably only suitable for, I would say, seasoned investors who know what they're looking for.
Right.
They just want the main point. They don't want to know what happens if they can't pay the deposit or can't settle. They know that. They know the end result. Like they know what will happen. They just want the main thing, right?
Right.
Then second level to that is a in-person or over Zoom conference where you go through the contract with them, answer their questions. Like, because sometimes when you go through something, they might have certain questions.
Yeah.
Right. Then another one is a comprehensive review where do like a full-on comprehensive letter for them to read.
Right.
Now, turnaround time, depending on the fee, differs. If it's like a high-level review, quite easily can get it done within a day, on the same day even.
Wow.
Depending on how busy, depending on the worst
Workload, right?
Right.
Sometimes you have 10 customers lined up, or sometimes you may only have 3, right?
But on average, generally, usually same day.
Beautiful.
But then if they want like a conference, usually maybe 1 or 2 days. Give me a time to review the contract, make any notes if necessary, so then I can streamline the conference.
Beautiful.
And then if you want something comprehensive, it might take a couple of business days.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's great that you have all these options. I guess for any investor looking for big property transactions, you have that level of skill, and you also have that turnaround time to let the customer know that this is what you're asking for and this is what we can expect. And that's very important because, like, for people who's bought property before, they may not want a full consultation. They know what to expect. They've already got the stable cash in case anything happens. They just want a smooth transaction to happen, right? Whereas anyone who's new to the property game, who's never bought a property for the first time, and they're willing to sit down with you and go through dot for dot what exactly am I buying and what are the consequences if I don't. A lot of the times, from my point of view, one pre-approval, one client will probably see about, on average, 7 to 8 properties until they find something that they like and they're willing to put $1 on the table for that to happen. So at that stage, I will also talk to the client, like, have you found a nice solicitor that you can trust, speak to, and understand? Because the controversy between that is, handing them a lawyer or a property expert, and they don't communicate or they can't communicate.
I mean, part of the whole job of a lawyer is to communicate, right?
Well, if the client doesn't vibe with the lawyer or the property expert, they're not going to understand the lingo, or they're afraid to ask more questions, right? And this is why it's super important for my role to be like a project manager. Like, hey, does this work for you? If it doesn't, let's find another property expert that you can understand, that you will listen to, and that you are able to freely express.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like, that definitely sounds very important, especially when you say, that kind of reminds me of something like, I guess sometimes I get comments from clients that say, I've explained it in a certain way which they could understand it, but someone else didn't explain it in this way, or they didn't understand what was happening. So that kind of ties in with what you're saying. Like, you've got to select the right person to help the right people.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And I guess, with SheConnects, the project is all aligning the right customers, the right audience to the right personnel. Because at the end of the day, anyone can be a lawyer with a degree, with the education background, but for you to converse and understand the client just as much as the client understands you is super important. But that's very good to know that, I guess, we see the world as it is, and if people don't connect, then we'll find another connection.
That's it.
That's right. Oh, is there any wisdom that you want to pass on today?
Wisdom today, specifically
today. I'm thinking it's a personal one, this one. It doesn't have to be a professional one.
I think based on today, my advice is get enough rest. Yes.
Sounds like someone has a hangover, but...
No, I wish it was a hangover.
No, it sounds like you've been overworked.
It's been quite busy.
It's been quite busy.
It's been very busy.
Yeah.
I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah.
Definitely keeps the rice off my table, so I can...
Rice is very important, guys. Don't think cutting carbs is the only way to live.
But But yeah, I think based on today...
Get enough rest. Make sure, stay focused on what you're passionate about and open to change, right? Open to change it up.
Keep learning.
Keep learning. That's a core one as well. But thank you, Solon. Thank you for sharing all your wise words today. Thank you for sharing a bit of your professional life and personal life.
Thank you, Anita. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you. Well, I hope to have you in the live workshops coming up. We will be meeting our audience or the community live, whether it's a big crowd or a small crowd. We love to meet people and we love to connect to you, and we hope to see you guys soon. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Anita.
All right. Thank you. See you soon.